Hey guys, Edward here from Edward79, the mixed content creator. Often described as the deadliest dictator in history, at least here in the West, Mao Zedong may not have been described in as bad of a light as Stalin, Mussolini, or a certain mustachioed Austrian man, but he did actually kill more people than all three. But how did history's soon-to-be deadliest dictator rise to power and ultimately fall? This is the rise, reign, and fall of history's dictators, subject Mao Zedong. The Chinese Civil War, World War II, and the rise of Mao. The date is June 6, 1916. Yuan Shikai, president of the newly established Republic of China, has died in Beijing. After his death, China would veer itself into chaos, with multiple warlords taking control of different parts of the country. 5 years later, the Chinese Communist Party, which Mao would later take control of, was founded on July 23, 1921 in Shanghai. 6 years later, in 1927, the Chinese Civil War broke out. In many areas, the Chinese Communists, now under Mao's leadership, had great support, while the official Republic of China under Chiang Kai-shek had to battle these Chinese Communists. Then, in 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria, and 6 years later, after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China, capturing the then capital of Nanking in December of 1937. With the Japanese then proceeding to murder and torture the city's inhabitants in the infamous Rape of Nanking, also known as the Nanking Massacre, that followed the city's fall into Japanese hands. This aggressive invasion by the Empire of Japan led the Chinese Communists and Republican government to form the Second United Front and fight in tandem against the Japanese. For the rest of World War II, the war in China would slow down into a massive quagmire for Japan, and when Japan officially surrendered in September of 1945, all conquered territory in China was given back to the Republic of China, with one notable exception: Manchuria. Manchuria was handed to the Chinese Communists, and with Japan defeated, the Chinese Civil War resumed, ultimately resulting in a communist victory and Mao Zedong taking power over the newly created People's Republic of China. The Korean War, Great Leap Forward, and Sino-Soviet split. After Mao Zedong took power over the Chinese mainland, the Republic of China government was forced to flee to the island of Taiwan, which Mao largely ignored, as he wanted to consolidate his power over China rather than get into an expensive war the US was almost certainly getting involved in. However, in June of 1950, the Korean War broke out. Previously, China largely didn't get too involved, as North Korea had captured Seoul and conquered almost all of the South. However, with the intervention of US and UN forces, as well as troops from several other nations, the South regained momentum, almost conquering the entire North. At that point, China was getting worried that if North Korea fell, American and UN troops would be right on the Chinese border, or just in case the US ever decided to launch an invasion. And so, Mao got on board with, at the time, North Korean leader Kim Il-sung, and Chinese forces crossed the border into North Korea, pushing the Americans back and eventually leading the war into a stalemate, with a border between North and South Korea drawn along the 38th parallel, which ended the Korean War. But Mao was also changing things up at home as well. In 1958, he launched the Great Leap Forward, a campaign to rapidly industrialize China by moving farmers into factory work. However, this turned out to be a disaster, because what ended up happening was that too many farmers were relocated to factory jobs, which ultimately resulted in the Great Chinese Famine only a year after the campaign's launch. This famine killed anywhere from 15 to 55 million people, and Mao's launch of the Four Pests campaign around the same time, which killed millions of sparrows that kept the population of crop-eating insects like locusts in check, only made it worse. In the end, though, even at the expense of millions of people's lives, China would finally industrialize, and the ultimate goal of the Great Leap Forward was achieved. But while Mao was changing things up at home, his country's relationship with its former allies in Moscow would break down, ultimately resulting in the Sino-Soviet split, a diplomatic split between a Stalinist China under Mao and a now de-Stalinized USSR under Nikita Khrushchev. The Vietnam War, Cultural Revolution, and the fall of Mao. However, only a few years after China and the Soviet Union had a massive, very public falling out, another war would break out on China's doorstep, the Vietnam War, fought between the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, or North Vietnam, and the Republic of Vietnam, or South Vietnam. The US and its allies would back the regime in the South, while Mao, alongside his allies, backed the North. Ultimately, the US would eventually withdraw troops from Vietnam after lots of internal pressure. After which, the South fell rapidly, and victory would fall into the hands of a now united communist Vietnam. However, by this time, Mao was approaching the end of his life, and before he died, and even before the Vietnam War's end, he would launch the Cultural Revolution on May 16, 1966. In essence, the movement's goal was to preserve Chinese socialism and eradicate all capitalist and traditional influences within the nation, with the Cultural Revolution ultimately leading to a death count that can range wildly from the hundreds all the way to the millions. Finally, on the 9th of September, 1976, Mao Zedong, the communist dictator over China who killed millions under his rule, died, with Deng Xiaoping appointed as his successor. So there you have it, the rise, reign, and fall of Mao Zedong. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next video. Edward here from Edward79, the Mixed Content Creator, signing out.